What is going on, SHIPIT Nation YouTube station? We are back with another edition of the NBA show. It's the Friday night show. We got a 7-gamer to talk about. We got one game starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, then the rest will start an hour later or more. But BJ, I'll bring you right in. How's your week gone? What's going on? Anything new since last time we spoke?
No, man. It's been a weird week. I did take an L in that golf tournament in the the finals of the bracket, but to get to the Final Four. L was an L. I didn't deserve it, but it's all good. And very excited to cheer on friends and specifically Rio in the live final tonight. So shout out to him and good luck. It should be quite the sweat. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to that. What's going on, Jake Swells? Glad to see you in there. Richie Small says the best. Hit the like. We appreciate that. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Jose, are we on OKC? We'll get there today. 20-point favorites, 3 touchdowns. Charlie's in the house. Takedown. William. Another Jake's in the house. Rodney Pollard. Desmond, as always. Parabay, as always. Justin Rice. My guy, Newlands, is in here. Thank you for tuning in. We got about 50 of you in here. We'll get up to 300 or plus on this live stream. If you're coming in after that, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. But any broad slate overviews for us before we get going, BJ? I know we talked a little bit pre-show about the value, but give the people a little bit of insight about what we're about to get into.
Yeah, most of the time I'm in here, I'm like, man, I love this slate. This is great. We'll figure it out. I freaking hate it tonight. It just nobody's fault. It's kind of how the NBA is going. I mean, the Wizards pulled all their guys versus the Jazz the other night. You get an ugly matchup with the Heat, the Rockets. Like you said, the Thunder are favored by 1,000,000 points. The Celtics are getting there. So kind of an ugly end of the NBA slate. But, hey, man, they're still giving out a bunch of money. So, it's always a good time to win some of that.
Giving out a bunch of money. They'll give out $1 million tonight in the NBA Live Finals. You alluded to Rio's there with 99 of his closest friends. Somebody's taking home $1 million tonight. Someone's taking home some more cheese as well. But if you haven't heard, we are now affiliated with SaberSim. No better time to get in over here. I'll put the packages up on the screen. What you get there, best value in the business is the all access with the optimizer. That's the best in there. $129 a month. Can't beat that. But hey, if you're new to the optimizer game or not, SaberSim has been around. Great company, great optimizer. Obviously, we utilize it over here every day. Today, we got an interesting slate. We got Michael Jordan taking on his and the rest of his Mavericks teammates. Taking on who are they playing?
The Sixers. Are you talking about our boy Quentin Grimes? They play the Spurs. They play the Spurs.
No, they play the Pistons.
No. He plays for the Sixers, foo.
Yes, that's right. Okay, I'm thinking he used to play for the Mavericks. Yeah, I said Michael Jordan.
I did the same thing, though. I did the same thing earlier. Like, I was writing it down, and I'm like, damn, dude, PJ Washington and Grimes are in a good, I can't play them both. I'm like, wait a second here. What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking, I was lost. But, yeah, Quentin Grimes. Anytime you say Michael Jordan and Quentin Grimes, you think of the same player. But let's get right into it. Got that first game up on the slate that I was talking about. We have the Magic, who should handle the Wizards pretty easily, I would think, but 8.5-point favorite. Pretty low-ish total. Especially for a Wizards game, 215.5 on the slate. But talk to me about this game. We're going to have some love for this Magic team tonight. But Magic at the Wizards, before I pass it back over to you, sorry, BJ, but Cole Anthony is still listed as questionable. Jalen Suggs, he's donezo. He's out. Obviously, Mo Wagner's been out for quite some time. Malcolm Brogdon out. Koulibaly's out. Kispert had season-ending surgery as well. Marcus Smart is out. So you got Washington trying to tank. You got the Magic going to have some value. Talk to me quickly about this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going to do obviously our due diligence here on this show, but there's going to be a handful of games that are kind of labeling guys that I don't love. So here in this game, it's one of them. I think the decision is pretty simple. It's, hey, if the Wizards are kind of tanking is what's going on. I assume it happens again tonight. We're going to want to get to these Magic guys. Paulo or Franz for me. Like I said, if you read the slate plan, Paulo, was in full discussion when we talk about all the studs on this slate. SGA's overpriced for the spot. Tatum's overpriced for the spot. I mean, I could argue Cade is even overpriced for the spot, but they made pricing tough today. So Paulo's going to be right in the mix with everybody. It's really a decision between him or Franz. I mean, Franz is getting some ownership for the discount. Paulo's still getting some love as well, but it would be pretty hard to get away from making rosters tonight and not getting one of these guys when they have such an effective team total against, the Wizards. I mean, 112 points. We know all of these points are going to be falling through one of these guys. To touch on, if Cole Anthony's in or out, I mean, I assume he's out, but that brings Corey Joseph into play at 4K. Don't love it. As you can see, I mean, we got, a 0.7, 1 fantasy point per minute. So he won't really be in my radar. We could make a case for a little Wendell Carter Jr. He's getting a little ownership, 4,700 prices come down. Either last time out or the night before that, his minutes were way down, but I'm throwing that game out. Still going to be productive versus a bad defensive team in the Wizards as they're kind of not letting any of their guys get run. And that's going to bring us to guys like Little Vooch, AJ Johnson, Jalen Martin, guys like that. I think they would definitely be able to take care of business. So as far as this game goes from the Magic side, I'm going to pick between Paulo and Franz. I like Paulo more, but you can't get mad about the discount you're getting to get down to Franz. You do get a little bit more ownership. And then, some sprinkles of Wendell Carter Jr. at 4,700. We have him projected at 15%. I think that's about right on where the field is going to be. If for some reason I got up to 20%, I would not be interested at all. And then jumping over to the Wizards side, I mean, it's safe to say if you're making multiple lineups, especially single entry, you're taking Jordan Poole, Sarr, Keyshawn George, Bub Karen. You're taking them all out of the mix. You cannot afford to, spend the salary on these guys when the minutes are so in question. They're going to, if they do end up running and kind of doing this effective tanking method, I would say where they kind of play the first half and don't get fourth quarter run, all those guys are out of discussion. That will bring in guys like AJ Johnson at 4,500. I mean, that's a pretty tough tag. I mean, it's a whole lot different if he's 38, 3,400 or 3,700. Yeah, whatever it may be. Now you're 45, you're in a whole nother phone. Yeah. Now you're in a whole nother island with that at 45. So I'm going to take him off, but we're talking about, Vooch down low at 4,200. Like I wrote in the slate plan, he's gone for like 17, 15 real life points, getting minutes up into the 20s. I would anticipate it stays right about that number. And if you're looking at a guy at 4,200 that's going to get 23 minutes of run, I mean, he has opportunities to kind of flirt, even in a tougher matchup, with that high 20s or 30 fantasy point production. So I'll kind of leave it at that. And then if you are kind of going through a few things and looking through optimizers, you will find a little Jalen Martin at 3,500 love. The last two, he's played 31 in 28 minutes. I would anticipate low 20s again tonight. We will get some value on this slate, but if you're really not comfortable with it, I wouldn't hate that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It's like, I mean, AJ Johnson was 3,500 last game, 32 before that when he had all those minutes. I mean, I don't see how you pay 4,500 for him. And, full tank mode, I'm with you. Single entry, you got to keep him out. Are you, and I know you mentioned it, but 9,900 for Banchero, man, that seems like a lot. Are you in or out as far as, the studs for Banchero?
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at all the studs here, I mean, all the studs are getting that price up. Like I said, SGA 11.6, but that's a 20-point game. Tatum's 11,000 with no Jaylen Brown for sure. But the other night, I mean, he took quite the increase. He went from 10-2, 10-1, kind of hovering around that zone for the entire season to 10-7, 11-1. Now he's back at 11. That game's favored, 2 touchdowns at 14 points. Cade 10-4. He's probably okay at that range. But to get to your question, Paulo's 99, Ant's 97, Şengün's 95. So I think it's kind of like a broad slate overview on, hey, I know he's 99, a little sticker shock, but the way it plays on this slate, I don't think much has changed, and he's kind of still, in an essence, like 92 or 9,100 compared to everybody else.
Yeah, agree with you there. Excellent breakdown. Let's move on to the next game on tonight's slate. We have the Rockets. It should be a good real-life game. Rockets heading into Miami to take on the Heat. Heat coming off a devastating buzzer-beating loss at the hands of Cade Cunningham last time out. Pretty close spread in this one. Like I said, it should be a pretty good game. Amen Thompson is listed as probable. No major news for the Heat outside of Andrew Wiggins is also listed as probable as well. But talk to me a little bit about this game. I don't know if you have any inkling if Amen Thompson is playing tonight or not, or Andrew Wiggins. But talk to me about this game, Rockets at the Heat.
Yeah, I think both those guys are going to be in. They're both probable. I assume everybody's in whenever that happens. But yeah, good real life game. Don't love it for DFS. I mean, specifically as a team, kind of as like a broad look, like the Rockets have done a really good job of taking away the catch and shoot and putting a lot more making it easier on the ball handler to kind of go and be effective on his own. So that would bring in really the, just to kind of do due diligence on the Heat side. Tyler Herro's price is coming down, 8,300, getting a little love at like 10, 11, 12% ownership. He's not really in play for me, but when you look at it in terms of like team defense, you could see, a ceiling outcome come from him because of the amount of shots he's going to be taking as they take away catch and shoots. But don't love it. I start on the Rocket side. I'll kind of start there because there's not much love at all in this game. Kellen Ware, 4,900, he's gotten 2 double-doubles in the last 3 games, played 33 and 36 minutes in a couple of those. He'll really highlight as one of the better value plays from this game. Price back below 5K, so he's okay. But, if you take away him and you take away Tyler Herro, and that's more of just kind of a broad slate attacking what the Rockets give up at 8,300, I don't have love for the Mitchells, the Duncan Robinsons, the Wiggins if he's in at 65, the Bam at 84. Yes, price is coming down, but this isn't a team I want to go ahead and attack. The Rockets have been rebounding specifically over the last couple of weeks really well. The Heat, offense is pretty ugly. They're not getting to the rim. They're not taking a bunch of catch and shoot threes. It's kind of some mid-range jumper only stuff, and they're not rebounding well. So not very many second chance points. And then jumping over to the Rocket side, I think with Amen back, it's going to change some things. All these guys' prices are priced for no Amen Thompson. Şengün at 95. That's a big boy tag, versus the Heat, who necessarily haven't been awesome on defense, but they got some bigs that I don't really want to attack. Dylan Brooks above 5K is too much for me. Fred VanVleet, has not been, tickling my fancy as of late at 6,800. Jalen Green, he's gotten hot a few nights at 7,900. But there's a reason why this game has some pretty low ownership aside from Herro and Bam. I think that ownership is just kind of prices are coming down and people, continue to attack knowing that this essentially is their whole offense. So I agree with the field here. I hate to say cross-off game and not really kind of talk through a few of these guys, but I wrote here to start off. I said Rockets blowout here and all around a stay around or all around a stay away game. Tell me if I'm wrong. Anything that I'm missing here, or is this going to be one of those games you don't want to attack as well?
Yeah, I don't think I want to attack it. You said it right. It's Bam or Herro. That everything goes through them. If Hawkes is starting again, I think Wiggins missed the other night against Detroit. He started. He didn't do much, but the game before that, he had a pretty good game. I don't mind his game, but yeah, no Duncan Robinson, no Davion Mitchell, Highsmith. It's Bam, Herro for me on that side. And then if I went somewhere on the other side, I didn't hear you mention Tari Easton. Any love for Tari Easton at 6'4"? Or is that too much to pay for him?
I think it's too much with Amen coming back. This is a guy we love to attack at 5,500, 5,800, but 64, along with everybody else on the slate, the prices are kind of up, but 64 is a little bit too much with, not the friendliest total in 214.
If Amen's out for whatever reason, do you like Tari at all?
Yeah, I could get behind it for sure. But like I said, I think he's playing tonight with the probable tag. And I think this might be kind of a slower, one-shot rebound type of game.
Yep. Excellent breakdown there. Next game up on the slate, got the Pelicans. No Trey Murphy, done for the season. It's a rematch of the last game 2 nights ago, I believe, when the Pelicans beat the T-Wolves 119 to 115. No one saw that coming. So we'll have revenge. This game means something to the T-Wolves. It means something to the Pelicans, too, in terms of tanking. But no major news for the Pelicans outside of Zion being out, which is big news. We know Trey Murphy's gone. We know DeJounte's been out for a while. Herb Jones been out. So no major news outside of Zion being out. That is obviously big news. And then no major injuries for the Timberwolves to report. So Ant's going to be popular. But talk to me about this game. Got a 14-point spread. With a super low total in this one as well. Not super low. I guess it's medium, 223.5.
Yeah, we're going to be able to play any and all Pelicans as many as we want to. There's a reason why the field is getting to this. We have 4 guys in the starting lineup above 20% ownership on DraftKings, and I agree with them all. So we'll start there. As a kind of a broad team overview, the T-Wolves, they love to shoot threes, and they shoot them at a high rate. They've cooled off as of late. I don't think that will stay very long as we get another matchup with the Pelicans. As you said, they lost to the Pelicans, but that was more of the Pelicans kind of rebounded well in that game, if I read the stats right. So as far as the Pelicans goes, I think this starting lineup is going to be what it's going to be. We'll start from the top down. So CJ at 71, I wrote him up in the slate plan. As a whole, this isn't a matchup that we want to attack versus the Timberwolves, but people will score points here, and the prices are fair. I think 7,100 for CJ is very fair. I think we're right about that barrier of ownership where I would be willing to roster at 25%. But if it gets above, if we start getting into the 30s with him, I will be off CJ and hope that this game kind of does blow out. They kind of run him out, and we get to get the likes of Jose and Hawkins and Kelly O on the floor. As far as the value section goes on this team, so taking Jose, Jordan, Kelly O, Misi, Bruce Brown, I think it's going to be, Hawkins and Jose as my two favorite value plays as the field, essentially agrees. I think if Hawkins can come in and get his minutes into the high 20s, into the 30s at 3,200, I wouldn't say must play, but he's really, really close to that. 3,200 for a guy that could fill it up, like shoot the basketball. I do like him. Jose at 46, just too cheap. Fills every bucket, going to get a ton of minutes. I don't mind starting lineups with both of those Pelicans together and kind of moving on and deciding if I want to play Ant on the other side. For the bigs with Misi and Kelly O down low, Kelly O is obviously going to be the better play and the better fantasy point producer. I think the minutes will be relatively similar compared between the two. But with such an ownership discount, I don't mind going cheaper at 4,400 and filling up a center spot with him. But like I said, I definitely do like Kelly O a lot more. And then the Bruce Brown stuff at 4,100 is really interesting. Compared to everybody else, the ownership is going to be down. I don't mind that as an avenue to kind of get different in some of these popular builds. But as a whole, this Pelicans team, you could play any of those six guys. And I think, before we move on to the Timberwolves, is there going to be a max that you're going to be okay with? Are you going to be okay with 3 Pelicans on the same team in this spot? Or am I wrong in thinking 3 is okay?
3 would be the max. For me, it's Jordan Hawkins is a lock. If he starts at 3,200, he's going to shoot it 15 times. So it's Jordan Hawkins and then Bruce Brown for me is the 2 that I like. The old Tamboism where you can get 2 players for $7,100 or $7,300. Sign me up for that. And then CJ McCollum as well, who's going to shoot it a bunch. I got to sneeze. Hold on.
You're good.
Sorry. So I don't mind CJ at 7,100. He would be the 3rd. I'm passing on Alvarado, I believe, passing on Kelly O, passing on Misi, but don't mind. I think Jordan Hawkins is a great play at 3,200. What kind of ownership are we showing on him? 21%.
21.
Yeah, I don't like that, but would still play him at that because, talk about good chalk, bad chalk. I think Jordan Hawkins gets 20 with ease and very likely to get 30 at 3,200. I don't hate that.
Yeah. No love for Jose, or is he just going to file in below those guys with Hawkins and Bruce Brown for you?
I never get Jose right. I play him all the time and he duds, and then I don't play him, he gets 40, but I like Jordan Hawkins better than him. I think that the decision would be more of Jose versus Bruce. I know different position eligibility, but who do you like there?
Jose for sure for me.
Jose, yeah.
Yeah. He just fills too many buckets. He just plays so hard. You can always kind of pencil him in for a couple of steals and a handful of assists. So that's what I think he's
former Timberwolves great Jose Alvarado.
How long he played for them? How long did he play for them for?
Oh,
you're the history guy with all that stuff. Me, once the season ends, I'm kind of blacking out until the season starts again. But
the chat's probably better. I'm probably wrong. I'm pretty sure Alvarado started his career with Minnesota. Someone in the chat let me know. He probably played there 3-4 years ago, 2-3-4 years ago. But I'm pretty sure he played in Minnesota for a couple years. But
I love it. Revenge narrative.
Well, he played the other night, and I don't think he did very well, but
yeah, they had Zion. So, but then jumping over to T-Wolves side, I'll keep it short before I pass it to you. I think if you're playing multiple Pelicans guys, you're going to want one of these pieces for the Timberwolves. I think that's also bringing Ant a little bit higher ownership with this. Like I said, the stud section's pretty tough to get right tonight with not a ton of value. So I think people are going to load up some value pieces and maybe CJ and want to run Ant back on the other side. Don't mind Ant, 9,700. Kind of cooled off a little bit as far as shooting efficiency goes, but still scoring his points, still scoring his fantasy points. He'll highlight the Timberwolves. I will not recommend a $3,600 Mike Conley. I thought about it for a little bit. 3,600 seems a little too cheap for a guy that can, get you into the mid-20s as far as fantasy points goes. But with that spread, if that game does play out the way that I think it is, pretty tough to get to when he might only get you 17 to 19 minutes. So I won't recommend him. McDaniels, playing really well, 6,500, a little too much for me. And then Gobert and Randall, specifically Gobert is kind of popping in Sabre and other places. I don't think this is a great spot for him. I'm really focused on Ant, and then the way that I'm going to get different. Unfortunately, his ownership is at 12%. I was kind of hoping it was going to be in the single digits, but Naz Reid, his price is 5,700 on DraftKings. His price continues to come down from it getting such an increase into the 7Ks with the injuries that they had. I think this is an okay spot as far as a $5,700 guy off of the bench against the Pelicans. And I want to be first on the bandwagon of when he finally starts, getting the tag to the correct price where he can show some upside. And I think a spot like tonight could be it. Hasn't been shooting awesome, but this is a great spot to be able to kind of get back on track. 5,700 at some lower ownership and what could be a blowout, and he gets a few extra minutes than we're used to. I don't mind him at 5,700.
Yeah, excellent breakdown. Conley versus Alvarado, where are you going? I know you mentioned him and then didn't mention him, but he's been playing better of late.
Yeah, I think it's still Jose, man. I think, we can pencil him in for at least high 20s in minutes, right, at 4,600. I know the ownership is there, but, with a lot of these older guys that, have been around the NBA for a handful of years, when these blowouts happen, especially late in the season, I think he's one of the first guys off the floor. So I don't really want to get cute and recommend him at 3,600.
Yeah, excellent call there. Next up, we got the Hornets. We got the Thunder. We got a 20.5 point spread. We got no LaMelo. We got no Mark Williams. We got SGA back. We have no J-Dub. That's the other Jalen Williams. Should not be a competitive ball game, but you have tons of pieces at rock bottom prices outside of Miles Bridges. So talk to me a little bit about this game. You go on Bridges solo. You got any love for 11-6 SGA? Aaron Wiggins had a good game the other night with no SGA, but talk to me about this game. Hornets at the Thunder. Thunder's still going to score 120 plus points, so someone's got to score them, get the rebounds. Talk to me about this game. Hornets at the Thunder.
Yeah, as far as my thought goes on SGA as a whole before I go to the Hornets side, he's expensive, and they're, like you said, they're favored by 3 touchdowns. It's pretty tough. I think 11-6 without having, some of this value. I mean, the value that we have in the 3Ks is very wishy-washy, coin flip type stuff. Like we talked about pre-show, it's tough to look at a $3,700 Nurk and a $3,800 Diabate and say, this is where I'm going to get my value tonight. So, I mean, if you're confident in that value, it makes rostering SGA a lot easier. Obviously, you're a relatively high floor in terms of gross fantasy points, but if he has one of those floor games, 11-6 eats up so much of your salary. It makes it really tough unless he's getting into the 50s and the 60s as a, quote, floor game to make it, easy on your roster construction and still give you a chance to win. For the Hornets stuff, I mean, they called up KJ Simpson, LaMelo Ball's out, Mark Williams is out. So he's going to be in full consideration at 3,800. And then obviously with the Mark Williams stuff, now we're going to have the discussion between Nurk and Diabate. That one's pretty easy, but before we dive into that, with the Nick Smiths at 5K, the Josh Green at 38, the Ball, I mean, we don't have him listed here, but he's 5K. I think that's all going to be too expensive for me, and your decision is going to fall in as far as a value perspective of, do I want to play one of these big guys in one of the worst matchups that there is in the NBA? And if I do that, what way do I want to go? So I believe, as the slate gets closer to lock, the ownership will go up a little bit higher on Nurk. And I think you're going to get quite the discrepancy between him and Diabate. Like I wrote in the slate plan, I mean, if you anticipate Nurk to get into the 20s in minutes, you kind of do some simple math that, will take down the 1.15 fantasy point per minute production to what, 0.9 or 1 fantasy point per minute with a tougher matchup versus the Thunder. If that's the case, he still gets you into the mid-20s, the high 20s as far as fantasy points goes. So I like him, and I think the field will agree. The Zig and the Zag spot would be playing Diabate over 38 or at 3,800 over Nurk. I believe they're going to split center minutes, and we've seen sometimes, over the season recently, they've given Diabate some more runs. So I don't hate it, especially if he kind of lucks in and kind of falls into the Diabate that we saw a few months ago with the Mark Williams trade stuff and where he produced really well. But Nurk over Diabate for sure. And then the real question kind of falls into the Miles Bridges stuff with no Ball, no Williams. I wrote him up in the slate plan as like the last column in the stud category. Today is his birthday, as Kid Lightning, in the Discord mentioned. I don't think OKC is a place where you want to celebrate your birthday. They're in Miami on Sunday night, so I think a Saturday night in Miami before a game with the Heat might be a time to celebrate his birthday. He's 9,200. We've seen what this guy can do when he doesn't have Ball or Williams on the floor. We've seen a handful of mid-50s and his upside as far as 60 goes with a 9.2 price tag and no ownership. I think if you're comfortable and you're making a handful of lineups, you're going to want some exposure at 3%. It's easy to get over the field. And at 9,200 on this tough, priced slate for all the players, I think there's worse spots you can go to than him at 9,200. And then jumping over to the Thunder side, I mean, if you have to make the decision as a player, if you're okay with SGA at 11.6 with a 20-point spread, personally, I'm not. And like I said, I'd rather save my $3,000 or $2,000 and go other places, specifically like a Bridges at no ownership. Now we're going to talk about Wallace's and Wiggins and Isaiah Joe's and Kendrick Williams. It's really tough. And hopefully you have, I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on where you could go here as a unit for the Thunder. But specifically during this season, I haven't gone to the Thunder essentially at all in these spots. I know other teams, it's easier to kind of navigate where the blowout run is going to go and who they could produce with. And the Thunder really aren't that team. I feel like once they kind of get going with a guy like Wallace or Wiggins or Isaiah Joe, they kind of let him roll, kind of play the hot hand stuff. And specifically with the guys off of the bench, they'll get a little bit of extra run with the starters before they step out. So really tough for me to kind of throw a dart and hit anybody. I guess Case and Wallace at 4,300, seems like the best for me. Don't know what his blowout run would look like. If you are really, into the blowout style of game, Kendrick Williams at 3,800 is going to fall into play. Jalen Williams is too much at 54 for me, but Isaiah Joe, I guess, is okay. But like I said, I've stayed away from it because in the past, I've never had success kind of predicting the rotations of blowouts. Do you have a lean on who would be able to produce the best from the Thunder value side in a blowout?
I don't. I wish I did. I mean, we're showing Case and Wallace starting. That one's tough. I mean, Aaron Wiggins is just a little bit too much. Would you agree at 5'7"?
Yeah, too much for me.
Yeah, he's too much. But man, I want to look and see what Miles Bridges has done with no LaMelo, with no Mark Williams. I just cherry picked the game, and I just happened to look at March 7th. What's the last time I saw him playing without Mark Williams? LaMelo was playing. He went for 60 plus. I mean, who else is going to shoot the ball on this team or do anything? Why would he not shoot it 32 times again like he did last time, Mark Williams?
I mean, he's gone for 55 or more DraftKings points 5 times this month. And that was kind of my thought when I touched on him. I'm like, damn, all the studs are $500 too expensive to $1,000 too expensive for these spots. He's getting no ownership. People will be scared of the matchup. I still think he gets to run. So kind of a sneaky play, easy to get over the field. I don't mind Miles Bridges. Then you throw in a birthday narrative where you can go hoop tonight and party in Miami tomorrow and worry about Miami on Sunday. I really don't mind that at all, actually.
Yeah, my boy Hebrew Cheetah. Hebrew Cheetah, what's your thoughts on Miles Bridges? I'm liking Miles Bridges at 9.2. He's got to get 50. I think he can get 50 with ease. Not with ease, but I think he can eclipse 50. I like that. Live from Scottsdale, we got our boy Hebrew Cheetah, Rio, checking in. Good luck tonight, Rio, out there in that live final. Moving on to the next game.
Real quick, I'm sorry. My last note on that game is I really don't mind builds where you're going KJ Simpson, making your decision between a popular Nurk relative to the Diabate, and then mixing in either an SGA or a Miles Bridges. Maybe you can get them all together. If the game somehow does stay close and SGA, becomes the main scorer, you could have some really good looking lineups after a couple of quarters in that game.
Travis Duarte, I don't know who you're talking about. Surely that's not Miles Bridges. Maybe it is, but I don't think it is. It says versus OKC. Next game on the slate. I'm going to get it right this time. We got $8,800 Quentin Grimes, no Tyrese, no Joel Embiid per usual, no Adim Bona, no Andre Drummond. Goodness gracious, PG8 is out. I mean, who is in? Kelly Oubre is out. Lonnie Walker is probable, going up against one of the worst defenses of recent, San Antonio Spurs. You got to love the Spurs. You said that Sohan was going to be popular, starter Sohan, but no major injury news for the Spurs. I mean, obviously, we know the guys that have been out are still out, including De'Aaron Fox. Bassey has been out as well. But, man, you look at this 76 roster. I mean, no wonder Quentin Grimes is 8,800. They have no one else to shoot the basketball, but you got a pretty high spread in this game of 6. You got a pretty high total of 234.5. Talk to me about this game, Sixers at San Antonio.
Yeah, this one's going to be popular in my opinion. This one's going to be a fun one to be able to stack up. Yeah, I mean, these are some of the worst defenses relatively, over the last couple of months in the entire NBA. Spurs, like I said, kind of the thing I've been going to, up to the last few games, they've been giving up almost 130 points since the Wemby stuff. I'm going to want all the pieces on the Spurs side. I'll get to them in a second, but to keep it short on the Sixers side, the prices have caught up on a few of these guys. Obviously 8,800 for Quentin Grimes is egregious, but I don't mind him as a play. But the Jared Butler at 6,300, the Justin Edwards at 44, the Yabu's okay at 54, but it's tough to really pin down his minutes. Brissett starting at 4K, it's okay, but I'm going to leave it short here with the Sixers. It's Lonnie Walker off of the bench. If he does play, he might sneak into the starting lineup at 4,400. I don't mind him as some salary relief as we see the field agrees at 27%. And then Quentin Grimes at 8,800. Not much to get here for the Sixers by tanking in this spot. So 8,800, I could see him getting into the high 30s and having one of those, like you said, the MJ games we've been joking around with. I think the Spurs defense is, still going to give up a ton of points. I mean, this bad Sixers team still has 115 point team total. So Grimes and Lonnie Walker for me, if you're more comfortable spending salary on Jared Butler at 63 or Justin Edwards at 44, I don't really mind it. That's more of a personal decision if you're going to spend $6,300 on Jared Butler. But jumping over to the Spurs side, I mean, taking out Harrison Barnes of this starting lineup, well, he's going to obviously play, but if you take away Harrison Barnes at 42 and then Chris Paul at 46, I mean, I'm good with Castle and Vassell, both essentially the same price. Wrote them up in the slate plan. I think it's pretty tough to distinguish between the two. Even the ownership is exact, so that might be your classic coin flip play. I think over the last few games, the minutes were down a little bit on Castle, but it seemed like he was, shooting really efficiently from the field. So I would lean him, but a total coin flip moment for me there between those two guys. And then, like I said pre-show, I think Shohan's going to be the most popular player on the entire slate at 5,100. Got his first start since January against the Knicks. I said at pre-show, what was he, 5 for 14 or something from the field? But, still has had double-digit real-life points in his last 5. I get it at 5,100, especially if the minutes stay the same and you get a really bad defensive team from the Sixers. 44. If he does come in at 44%, that would be a question that I'll ask you in a second as I finish up the Spurs. But if he plays 35, 34 minutes and we anticipate him not going 5 for 14 from the field, but hitting a few extra shots, I think the number for me would be like 50, 55% as far as ownership goes, where I look to fade. As of right now, though, I mean, you get some pretty fun builds when you make your decision between Castle and Vassell, or Shohan and Keldon Johnson at 4,700. So those would be my 4 favorite Spurs. I know Sandro just went off for like 1 million fantasy points the other night, but his price is up and you can't guarantee him getting more than like 16, 15 minutes, it feels like. So I'll be off him, and that's kind of where I'll leave this game. I really like making the decision on if you're going to play Quentin Grimes or not. If you do, I'm going to look for multiple pieces from the Spurs side, specifically a decision between Castle and Vassell and then Keldon Johnson or Sohan. I lean Castle and I lean Sohan, but I think those are all going to be really close coin flip spots. And I think you can get to those multiple Spurs and run back. Definitely Quentin Grimes, and then if you're getting really freaky, you could probably throw in another Sixer there.
Yeah, excellent breakdown there, man. I'm just thinking like the Spurs, like Sohan at 40+ percent. I think to me that's an easy fade, personally. I did not hear you mention Yabu at 5'4", no bigs to speak of. And then Okike, someone put in the chat, no Yabu love for you.
Yeah, no love. It's just tough because like I've seen a couple of these games when they've had rosters like this, that he just doesn't get, the correct rotations in my opinion. And then if you look back on some of these games that he produced really well, he rebounded really well. Like he just I'm thinking about the Bona game where he had like 8 rebounds or something like in the first 8 minutes of action. So no, I feel more comfortable just going Quentin Grimes and then making a decision actually between, the Brissett over Yabu personally. But no love really. And then, you talk about Kike, it's 4,200. I mean, I guess, but I think this would be like a classic spot where it's like, hey, I want to get the guys that I know that, have the upside of minutes. Now I could project him. I mean, what would be his minutes projection here? Low 20s, maybe the mid 20s if he gets an extra rotation. But like I said, I think I'd rather go Brissett. I think I'd rather go Quentin Grimes and Lonnie Walker before I get to those guys.
Yeah. 31 DraftKings points for Quentin Grimes seems super low to me.
Well, 31 fantasy points?
Yes.
Okay, so
does it not to you?
Well, yeah, for sure. But I mean, what was his upside on the other night? We had like 70 something. I know he scored like 40 real life in that spot, but I mean, this guy has the upside of shooting the ball 28, 29 times.
But that's my point. Is like I think he should be closer to like 36, 37.
As far as what minutes?
Like his projection.
Oh no, I think his projection's got to be higher than that. I mean, if he's going to take the high 20s in shots and play his 30, 34 minutes, I mean, yeah, you do his fantasy point per minute value. It kind of rounds out to that. But I think, he's in a much better spot with that, with how bad the Spurs have been.
Yeah. I guess my point, though, is that we haven't projected for 31. I just think that's too low.
Yeah. I mean, I bumped him to like 40 seems high, but why not? You can bump him to 38, 37 and see if he gets into builds, but I think there's a reason why he's going to be 5%. But yeah, that it does seem a touch too low in my opinion. Now that you say that.
Yeah, but Parabay, that does. I mean, with Lonnie back, does that impact Grimes? That may be going into it. I'm not 100% certain, but that just seems low to me. But I digress. We'll talk about the next game. Got the Pistons, big boy favorites against the short-handed Mavs. 9-point favorites. We got another 230 plus total game. So, this game is going to mirror the Spurs game, the one we just talked about in terms of total points, slightly below it. But any love for these Pistons? Cade Cunningham seems like a tailor-made spot for him. But any love for the Mavericks and or the Pistons? No major injury news for the Pistons. The same guys that have always been out are out. Same thing with the Mavericks, the usual suspects. No Davis, no Exum, no Daniel Gafford. Lively's still out as well. Caleb Martin's out. Brandon Williams is probable, I guess, is the most recent one that's been playing. He was playing good earlier, but hadn't been playing well of late. But talk to me about this game, Pistons at the Mavericks.
Yeah, I love all the Pistons in this spot. I think Cade at 22%, obviously makes sense. I mean, I could argue that it gets higher just as you go to look to build teams. I mean, he feels like the easiest stud that has the closest price to what it should be. Like we've looked at Cade around this price, and a little bit cheaper over the entire season. The spread isn't as big as these other studs. We know his floor is awesome. So really like Cade here, and he'd be my favorite between SGA, Cade, and Tatum in this spot. So I really get that. And I'm going to go back to the toxic ex-girlfriend of the year award with Jalen Duren at 6,700. His ownership is projected a little bit higher than what I thought. I didn't think it'd get above into the 20s. I thought mid-teens was very fair on him. His minutes are disgusting. He should be getting, an extra 4 or 5 minutes in my opinion, and get him into the 30s. Still produces relatively well in all of these spots where he doesn't get the minutes. But like I wrote in the slate plan, I think one of these games to end out the season, he'll sneak up into his 33-minute, 32-minute territory. Like I said, one of the games, not all of them. So at 22, 23%, if it goes up a little bit, I'll be on the fade train there. If you look at values and on Sabre and through our site, we're going to see, Tim Hardaway, Asir Thompson, Tobias Harris, all kind of pop, even Dennis Schroeder at 4,400. I'm okay with all these guys. I mean, Cade's my favorite, followed by Durant, and then we're going to get into some questionable value stuff with Beef Stew at 3,200. I mean, you could probably project him. What do we have him projected at? We have him projected at 17. I think that's very fair. I mean, you can give him an extra bump or two and sneak him into 20 fantasy points. if this game did get out of hand with how bad the Mavs are against centers and at the rim. But yeah, I mean, all these guys, like I said, K's my favorite stud. Duren's going to fall into the mid-range. At the ownership, I won't get to him at 21%. And then all these mid-tier kind of value-ish guys, they all make sense to me. Really only Dennis Schroeder off the bench. No Tobias Harris at 5,500. Sir Thompson, 43. His price is getting really low. But if you like Cade and Durant, it's tough to get to one of those guys. And then for the Mavericks side, I mean, all these guys are priced fair. I mean, Najee Marshall's still 8K. I think PJ Washington will be our biggest opportunity area at 7,900. Kai Jones, he'll get a few extra minutes. I think his minutes are going to continue to grow. He's 5,100, but PJ Washington at 7,900. He's very consistent, getting in his high teens, flirting with 20 shots a game. He's gotten 38. I wrote in the slate plan, it was like 38 and 32 minutes or something like that over his last two. I really like him. He's really my only play here for the Mavs. Tough to get behind $6,200 Spencer Dinwiddie. Tough to get behind $6,900 Klay Thompson. Najee Marshall at 8K, no thank you. Kai Jones 51 as the minutes grow for sure, but that's too tough for me. Brandon Williams, I guess, okay, but he's 5,800, and it's a pretty interesting price zone. We got guys like for an extra $1,000, you can get to Castle or Vassell, or you could go down and get to some of these value Pelicans guys. So I won't be getting there tonight. And for me, I think it's, eat up the Pistons that I really think are productive and then run back PJ Washington without getting too cute in this game.
Yeah, excellent breakdown there. And Russell, wrong one. Russell Sabre's got him at almost 40. I think that's probably closer. We may need to look at that. But
on Grimes?
Grimes, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like it felt weird saying out loud. But like I said, it's a projection, and a couple of shots go in. Now he's at 50, and then if a couple of shots don't go in, he's at 34. So I think it's interesting to kind of not dive too deep into a discussion like that. But I mean, an extra blocker or steal goes a long way when looking at those projections.
Yeah, real quick, sorry I missed it. PJ Washington, do you have any love for PJ?
Yeah, he's the only Mav that I like. 7,900, high teens in shots, getting his minutes back over the last two. I think he's a really good piece to be able to run back with a couple Pistons. We have enough value that it makes it really easy to get to like a Cade and then Schroeder, if you will, or even if Durant, if you think he gets some extra minutes in a spotlight tonight. It's okay to run both those guys and PJ. We have enough value with the Pelicans and the Hornets to make those okay.
Yeah, excellent breakdown there. Next game up on the slate, no JB. Jaylen Brown is sitting this one out tonight for the Celtics. Utah Jazz, everybody's out. I feel like all the good ones. John Collins out, Lauri Markkanen out, KJ Martin out. And then Kessler. Kessler played like 10 minutes and they sat him, so they're in full tank mode. Jordan Clarkson's questionable. But talk to me a little bit about this game. I know you said you're going to be under on Jason Tatum, but talk to me Celtics, big boy favorites at the Jazz, 14.5, 226-point total. Celtics at Utah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, rounding out the slate like this, with this being like the last game that we talk about and an hour later than everything else, it's tough because, I mean, Jason Tatum, obviously a smash spot if he's like 10-2, but he was a part of the guys that got that increase to 11K. 11K Jason Tatum on a 7-game slate with 20 to 25% ownership is a tough roster for me. I'd feel more comfortable getting to a guy like Derek White at 7,700, even Drew Holiday at 5,500. Peyton Pritchard's too much for me at 61. I know this is kind of the nut matchup for some of these guards, but I anticipate Celtics taking care of business here. I wouldn't be really upset with you with a Jason Tatum, 11K. We haven't projected for, I got a million lines, 45, and I think that's obviously baking into him not getting the last run. I mean, if you look around, some of the other places he can get up to high as 50 as far as projection goes. So kind of the story of the slate. That's why I like Cade so much, is I'm okay, losing to an 11K Jason Tatum if he absolutely goes off and gets up to 65 fantasy points tonight, but I won't be on that train tonight. I like Derek White, 7,700. He shot 3 for 11 in his last 2 games back-to-back from the 3-point line. Pretty much the second option. I know we have Porzingis there, but pretty much the second option as far as, taking shots from behind the 3-point line when Jaylen Brown is out. Price is up just a touch, but I'm okay with it. I can see why the field's getting to 15%. Definitely like him more than Drew, but Drew, 5,500 prices there. He pretty high floor with Jaylen Brown off of the floor. Don't love it, but it is what it is. I can't really get behind 82-0 Porzingis. No, thank you. I think the Celtics take care of business. And then, just for fun, looking at some of these cheap guys, I mean, the Cornets, the Shireman went off like the other night versus the Nets. He's not obviously going to be in play, but I really am interested to see that if this game gets out of hand, if he does get a little bit of run at 3,500, more of a basketball fan versus an actual DFS play. And then for the Jazz, man, you said it. I mean, they're kind of going into take mode here. It becomes really hard. I mean, Jordan Clarkson, with him being questionable tonight, all the guards, it's really tough to distinguish. One, who would be the best play? And then two, what would the rotations even look like if these guys, ended up, getting what we think is full minutes? I think as of right now, as boring as it is, we can't trust any of these Jazz guys. I mean, we look at the guards, Sexton at 64, Collier at 59, Keontae George at 66, and Jordan Clarkson at 6K. You can't get to any of those guys, even if we knew they were going to play full minutes with this matchup against the Celtics. You talk about Flip and Kessler down low. I mean, their prices are up too, 63 and 7,500 for a tough matchup. Porzingis on the other side. I think if you were going to get to anything, it would be the Sensabaugh and the Juzang, but we're really reaching on that. So I think the Jazz are a pretty safe, X off and fade, in my opinion. And if you were going to get to somebody, I think it's more somebody like Sensabaugh or Juzang for super cheap, anticipating the Celtics blowout.
Yeah, I like me some Peyton Pritchard at 61 against one of the worst 3-point defending teams in the NBA. No Jaylen Brown, should hopefully play 30 minutes. I don't mind some Peyton Pritchard. Excellent breakdown there. That's all 7 games. Appreciate everyone tuning in on this fine Friday. Before we get on out of here, I need a 6X under 6K play of the day, BJ. Give the people the player that's going to hit 6X their salary under $6,000. I'll give you the floor first because I already got mine locked and loaded, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think I don't want to get too chalky on this, but I think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be Nurk at 3,700, and then I'll give you a second one because it's easy. But Jose Alvarado at 4,600 is just way too cheap. I can see both of those guys being necessary to win tournaments tonight. And like I said, we're going to need it with what the prices are on some of these studs are. So I think additionally as some broad slate overview, I think, you really have to make the decision where you're going to spend your money in the upper tier tonight, because with the prices being so high, the opportunity cost definitely changes. So, if you don't get the stud right tonight and you're looking at a 11-6 Shea or an 11K Jason Tatum that gets you into the mid to high 40s as far as fantasy points goes, that's going to be a no-go for winning any money tonight.
I'm going to give you a 10X play of the day. He's going to outscore Jose Alvarado, Jordan Hawkins, $3,200. That's 35 at a minimum, in my opinion, anyway. If he starts, let me put that little asterisk in there. But Jordan Hawkins, love him tonight against the Timberwolves. Good luck to Rio tonight. Good luck to everybody out there in your contest. Certainly appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you hit that like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. For my man BJ, we'll be back here on Monday. Let's ship it.